President Trump is expected to meet with a high-ranking North Korean official today at the White House as preparations for a summit with Kim Jong Un ramp up. Kim Yong Chol is expected to deliver a letter from the North Korean leader to President Trump. He met with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in New York yesterday.
Our two countries face a pivotal moment in our relationship in which it could be nothing short of tragic to let this opportunity go to waste.
Major Garrett is at the White House with more on the meeting that will take place later today.
Hopefully we'll have a meeting on the 12th that's going
President Trump, growing more familiar with the complex negotiations ahead, acknowledged a nuclear deal with North Korea could require a summit and much more.
Doesn't mean it gets all done at one meeting. Maybe you have to have a second or a third, and maybe we'll have none.
Today's expected meeting with dictator Kim Jong Un's close aide, Kim Yong Chol, signals progress in summit talks. The White House expects Kim will deliver a letter from Kim Jong Un, a response, perhaps, to Mr. Trump when he wrote Kim Jong Un canceling the Singapore summit. The president then cited new North Korean hostility, but urged the North Korean leader to, quote, call me or write if you change your mind. Kim Yong Chol is a top regime figure. He was sanctioned by the Obama administration for his alleged involvement in approving the North Korean hack of Sony Pictures Entertainment in 2014.
Make no mistake about it, there remains a great deal of work to do.
After meeting with Kim in New York Thursday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said tough talks lie ahead. The U.S. wants verifiable and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. North Korea wants economic sanctions lifted. The pace and sequence of both divide the two nations. Pompeo said the two sides came closer to nailing down a summit.
It does no good if we're in a place where we don't think there's real opportunity to place them together. We've made real progress towards that in the last 72 hours.
Pressure is already building on the administration to ease those economic sanctions on North Korea. The White House, wary of decades of broken nuclear reduction promises from the North, is looking for far more tangible evidence of disarmament before taking off or easing in any way that economic pressure. Vlad?
Major, so a key issue in planning the summit has been the timeline and the process of the North's denuclearization. So what's the latest on that part of the discussion?
Well, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, made it clear in New York that that's the hardest part, and there are very tough negotiations ahead to agree on terminology. What does denuclearization mean to the United States? What does it mean to North Korea? The North Koreans essentially define it as, well, we have a nuclear program. We'll deal with it on our terms. But what we mean by denuclearization is the United States takes away the nuclear threat about North Korea and its military threat, and perhaps removes U.S. troops from South Korea. We end the war with South Korea, and then on our timetable, and with lots of economic benefits on the front end from the U.S., we engage in long-term conversations about our nuclear program and what to do with it going forward. That's the North Korean denuclearization definition. That's not where the Trump administration is. It's not where previous U.S. presidents have been either, to put a small point on it. So this aspect of whatever comes of a Singapore summit or any other meeting after that is really the vital topic. How do you define denuclearization? What's the pace of economic sanctions relief? What's the pace of dismantling that nuclear weapons program? Who verifies it? Who agrees with it? And how do you work it out? All of those things are not only completely unresolved, Vlad, there aren't even agreed upon definitions of the terms.
Well, so Major, I'm always excited for the takeout. This week, you spoke with Sumi Terry. She, of course, is a former CIA senior analyst and a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And you asked her about the idea that North Korea cannot be taken at its word. I want to play a little bit of that.
It's very real, and that's why we have to be very, very skeptical. What it could appear to be successful, North Korea could absolutely agree to a lot of things like they have before. And there could be even an agreement that's produced like we have agreements before. We can have a beautiful joint statement. But we would not know whether that's truly successful until North Korea truly denuclearized. And obviously, that we were not able to achieve that in the past 25 years.
All right, so the key sort of words that I kept hearing repeated was, you know, as they've done before.
Right. Vlad, we have had agreements, joint statements, United States, North Korea, denuclearization, plans, agendas, schedules, processes, all agreed upon, all signed up to. and completely undercut, undermined, and deceived by the North Koreans. That is the history. It flows through the Clinton administration, the George W. Bush administration, and to a lesser extent, the Obama administration. So the topic of denuclearization isn't new. Agreements have been forged before. And in some cases, the North Koreans were undermining those agreements as they were negotiating them. And then after they were signed, sealed, and delivered, accelerated the process by which to deceive the United States and the international community about their compliance with that denuclearization pledge. That's the history. What's different now, and even Sumi Terry, who's a skeptic on this and the possibilities of all this, does acknowledge Kim Jong Un is doing things differently and engaging at a level no previous North Korean leader has ever engaged at with an American president. And that does suggest that there's a possibility that the North Korea is going to make a different strategic decision than it has in the past. It at least presents that tantalizing possibility. And it's only that. There's potential here, but there's a very, very long way to go. And this administration has been schooling not only itself, but over the last couple of weeks, the president on this long history of deception from the North Koreans. And that is a real element of how the president has come to say, you know, it's going to take probably more than one summit, many more agreements. Mike Pompeo talking about very hard talks ahead. There's a sense of realism in the rhetoric being deployed by the Trump administration that even if there is a summit in Singapore on June 12th, that will only be a starting point, and much hard work will flow from it if it even begins then.
All right, Major, final question for you. President Trump also announced yesterday that he's pardoning conservative commentator Dinesh D'Souza. He violated campaign finance law. He's also hinted at pardoning other sort of high-profile, even some might say celebrity figures like Martha Stewart, Rod Blagojevich, who was the former governor of Illinois. What is the message? Because there are a lot of people that are close to the White House that are saying and signaling that this is a message to people, for example, like Michael Cohen or Paul Manafort. What's your takeaway?
Well, first of all, in one point of clarification, in Blagojevich's case, the Illinois governor, it would be probably a commutation. That's what the president's talking about, not a full and complete pardon. It might be a pardon in the Martha Stewart case. There's a lot of tea leaf reading going on, and there is an element of it that's a bit frenzied as far as I'm concerned. First of all, the president hasn't commuted a sentence for Rod Blagojevich. He hasn't pardoned Martha Stewart. His pardon powers are as available to him as they are to every American president, and he exercises them as he sees fit. The tea leaf reading is, well, anyone pardoned, and if it's in a certain area, is a signal directly from the president to Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, anyone else who might be indicted or who has pled, hey, stick with the president and he will take care of you. Well, it may be a signal, but until that sort of thing happens, it's all speculative. And with that speculation comes a harsh sense of the motivations of the president. And I think it's incumbent upon us to say it's only speculation. It's possible, but nothing's happened yet. And that's a pretty harsh level and a cynical level of speculation to say pardon powers exercised by the president are done only in the future context of possible criminal prosecutions of somebody wrapped up in the Russia investigation. To me, that feels like a bit of a leap. And until it's made, we should be cautious about toying with that speculative aspect of this story.
All right, Major Garrett reporting from the White House for us. Major, we will catch up with you a little later, and we look forward, of course, to the takeout. I think